She had been stealing from my property for 3 months. 3 full months. Cord after cord of seasoned oak I had split myself, stacked myself, and paid for myself. Gone. And every single time I brought it up to the HOA, Diane Holcroft, our self-appointed board president, looked me dead in the eye and told me she had no idea what I was talking about, smiled that little smile of hers, adjusted her lanyard, and walked away. So I stopped complaining. I stopped filing reports. I went to the hardware store, picked up some supplies, and I built her the most beautiful stack of firewood she had ever seen in her life. She took every single piece. And what happened next ended her reign over Cedarbrook Estates permanently. Before we get into exactly what I did, and trust me, every detail matters here. If you are watching this and you are currently dealing with an HOA board that thinks your property is their personal resource, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel, HOA Shield, exists for one reason: to give regular homeowners the tools, the strategies, and the stories they need to fight back and win. Now, let's talk about Diane. I moved into Cedarbrook Estates in early October. I had done everything right. I read the CC and Rs front to back, twice. I introduced myself to the neighbors. I attended the welcome orientation that the HOA sends every new homeowner. I was not looking for trouble. She wore her board president lanyard on weekends. On weekends. Like it was a badge of federal authority. The first time I met her, she was standing at the edge of my driveway, not on the sidewalk, on my driveway, inspecting my moving boxes with narrowed eyes like she was a customs agent and I was smuggling contraband into the neighborhood. She introduced herself, handed me a laminated copy of the community standards, and told me, and I quote, "We have expectations here, and the sooner you understand that, the better your experience will be." Then she turned around and walked back toward her house without waiting for me to respond. I filed a report with the HOA. 3 days later, I got a letter back from the board, signed by Diane Holcroft personally, informing me that the board had found no evidence of any rule violations by any community member, and that I was encouraged to install a lock on my side gate. No investigation, no follow-up, no acknowledgement that someone had stolen my property. Just a suggestion to buy a padlock. I bought the padlock. 3rd week of November. I come out one morning and the padlock is sitting on top of the fence post. There were small scratch marks around the keyhole. Someone had picked it or shimmed it. This was not casual theft. This was organized, deliberate, and practiced. I went online. I ordered 3 things. First, a cellular trail camera with motion activation, night vision, and automatic upload to a private cloud account. Second, a GPS tracker the size of a deck of cards with a magnetic mount and a 30-day battery. Third, a can of bright orange powdered dye, non-toxic, completely harmless, along with hollow rubber end cap inserts. I took 12 pieces of firewood from my stack and I carefully drilled a 2-inch channel into the end of each one. Not deep enough to compromise the structural look of the log, just deep enough to seat a small sealed capsule. Into each capsule I packed a compressed charge of the orange dye powder. I sealed the capsules with wax and capped them with rubber inserts so they looked exactly like normal wood grain, to the naked eye, indistinguishable from the rest of the stack. Then I mixed those 12 logs into the front of the stack, the pieces most easily grabbed first, and I restacked the whole thing so it looked fresh and untouched. 6 days later, a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m., when I was still inside making coffee, my phone buzzed. Motion alert from the trail camera. I opened the app and watched the live feed. A person in a dark coat and garden gloves was working through my firewood stack with practiced efficiency, loading pieces into a large canvas tote bag, moving quickly, head down. I watched for about 90 seconds. I did not go outside. I did not confront anyone. I let the camera record everything. Then I watched the person zip up the tote, lift it, and walk toward the side gate. I opened the GPS tracker app. The dot was moving southeast, down Cedarbrook Drive, 4 houses down. It stopped at 14 Cedarbrook Drive, Diane Holcroft's address. I sat down. I made a second cup of coffee, and I thought very carefully about what I was going to do next, because I knew that if I handled this wrong, she would find a way to make me the villain. I submitted a formal written records request to the HOA management company, not to the board, for all correspondence, meeting minutes, and board decisions related to my prior theft complaints. Under my state's HOA transparency statutes, they were legally required to provide those records within 30 days. What came back in that records package was extraordinary. Diane had sent an internal board email 2 days after my first complaint, in which she described my Firewood complaint as, quote, unfounded and the result of a new homeowner unfamiliar with community norms. She had unilaterally closed the complaint without a board vote, without notifying the other board members. She had just buried it. That email became Exhibit A in the police report. The responding officer contacted Diane directly. I was not present for that conversation, but I received a call from one of my neighbors about 40 minutes later asking if I knew why a police cruiser was parked in front of the Holcroft house. I said I had some idea. The dialogues, by the way? She had loaded them into a storage shed in her backyard. When the detective asked to inspect the recovered property, with Diane present, several of the logs had been disturbed during loading and stacking. The interior of the shed, portions of Diane's gloves, and a section of the canvas tote bag were stained a vivid, unmistakable orange. Non-toxic, harmless, but bright as a highway cone. Diane was charged with misdemeanor theft, multiple counts given the documented history. She was also cited for filing a false or misleading board record. 3 weeks later, Diane Holcroft resigned from the HOA board. Her resignation letter cited personal health reasons. My firewood stack is full. My gate is locked. And the trail camera is still up. Because I earned that peace and I intend to keep it. So here is what I want to know from you. At what point would you have confronted her directly? Leave a comment below. And if this story hit the way I think it did, subscribe to HOA Shield. We post these every week. Because out there right now, someone like Diane is standing in someone's driveway in a lanyard. And that homeowner needs to know they are not alone. See you in the next one.